right? So I'm passing what I know on to you, right? However, I think this is not going to be the case in the future, because I guarantee if you study computer science, whatever program and language you study in school for computer science, when you get to work, you're not going to use that language because word revolves so fast, right? When you get to work, there's going to be something different, something new, right? So I think it's definitely more important for the kids to know how to learn versus what exactly they're learning, right? Like the content knowledge. So my role is not the person with knowledge. I don't know everything about the Bible, right? I don't know enough. And I see myself as a facilitator, right? So I'm not passing what I know on to them. Sometimes I know what they need to know. Sometimes I don't know what they need to know. But I'm willing to just be there with them and kind of teach them the process of learning. And sometimes I know the answer, but I don't give it to them directly. And we're gonna figure it out on our own. And sometimes I don't even know the answer, and that's okay. And then so that's something that we can figure out on the way. Let's figure this out together. I think these three things, what my goal is to teach the content knowledge, or is to teach the process, to teach the soft skills. And how I see myself is versus am I the person with authority or expertise so I can pass on what I know onto them, or am I facilitating the learning? And the third is how I see the student. Do I see them as half cup full or half cup empty?
Okay, so you talk about three things as the how, right? One is the process. So focus on to enrich the kids with the process to pursue a learning or pursue whatever, right? Second is look at them as they can. They bring some richness about how to learn within themselves, and you just extend that. You just give them the opportunity to continue developing on that, right? Third is with that too, to see yourself as a facilitator rather than someone who knows more than them. Right?
Yeah. So what we actually did was I didn't teach them any Bible lessons at all. There was no lesson at all. So we ended up organizing a conference, a kids organized conference, when they ask the question they want to know. For example, why, if God is good, why does bad things happen to good people? All these questions. So they asked these questions they want to know, and then we gathered guest speakers. They invited people who they think know the answer, and we organized also panel discussions. So these kids. We organized, I think there were like 5 different panels, and they asked 5 different questions, spiritual questions, related questions, and the kids asked the speakers questions, and they organized this whole conference, and within this, they learn a lot about the Bible.
I was your panel moderator too. So I remember there's one session about life difficulties. So the panel covers someone who didn't get admitted by the school he wanted to. That's one difficulty. Another one is like a teacher who tried to teach but kids don't listen. So that's another difficulty. Another one is a high school student who broke the leg. That couldn't play sports. And then the hardest difficulty was my husband who got cancer. So they have the panel, they ask them. So I saw the life difficulty, 8 to 12-year-old, how much they know, right? At the end, I said, so if you feel you have run into some life difficulties as well, raise your hand. Oh, you saw the little hands, I look at the 8-year-old and my 12-year-old, I said, what difficulty you ever had, right? But oh, you see the eyes wet, it's like they really know. They went through the process with the 4 panelists, and they really know. It amazed me. How rich the learners already have in their mind, in their heart, and how they develop on that. It's rather than tell them a life lesson or whatever. So from here, I really thought that this kind of skill, the how, is very useful for parents, because at home we always want to teach them some values. Right? Do you want to push the value, or you want to enrich them? The process of acquiring that value. It's complicated because your value might not be black or white, right? But so they could have so I thought when I talked with her, I thought this is something very good, very useful at home. Right? So actually, Coming here, I can enjoy this the whole day. Coming here, we talk about kids have a lot of personal knowledge and awareness about themselves and try to pursue their own dream. But actually, there are a lot of cases, kids push themselves too hard for whatever reason, right? And high expectation, but it could be too hard, like become perfectionist. And then if this is not perfectly that way, I'd rather just don't do it. So they procrastinate to the last minute. And a lot of things, right? They got disabled for things they wanted to do, but they don't think they can do it well, or they start something thinking they can do well, but then quickly they couldn't, so they don't want to end it. So there are a lot of people, I think, in the teenage saw that. If a child had that kind of situation, what would be your advice to the parents? Want to take that? Public, private, specialist?
I want to say something about that group of 8 to 12-year-olds that raised their hand. Because what I saw, we all laughed. You know, what problems do 8 to 12-year-olds have, right? But that's why it's so important to listen to our children. Because as adults, we know the real problems of life. But to the 8 to 12-year-old group, what's a problem for them is the real problem of life. And that's why it's to the 4-year-old, what her little problem is the real problem of life. And when we laugh, we kind of slough that off like that's not so important. And the message she gets is, I'm not so important. And we don't want to do that. So we want to acknowledge that what they tell us, no matter what it is important. And how they feel about it is important. But not to solve it for them. Because as soon as a child acknowledges what their problem is, as soon as a child acknowledges what they did wrong in a situation, they will change their behavior. That's why I don't believe in punishment at all, because children don't need to be punished. What they need is to acknowledge that their behavior was out of bounds, or their behavior broke a family rule or a school rule. They change their behavior because they want to do what's right. They want to please mommy or daddy. So it's really, really important to listen to what they tell us.
That's such an important point. I saw, Scott, you're digging out some data. You want to say something?
Well, there's an enormous amount of data on mental health, well-being. Mental health, well-being as it correlates to student achievement. And I'll get back to you when I pull up that data, because I don't want people to think that we're just talking. We're not actually supporting our theories with research, but there's plenty of it. I'm looking at a CDC study currently. Once I find that data, I'll share it with you.
I think, Kevin, you also mentioned that, I know in high technology, high school, the competition is high. So the good part is you saw kids coming in who never know they could work that hard, and then come back to thank the school, say what the school kind of bring the awareness of them, right? Also, you see there are kids who almost break down, right? So
we have both ends of the spectrum. You know, I have had students, both when I was a teacher and as a principal, that were perfectionists, as you say, and you know, that's a student who, you know, you'll see them perseverate over their test and redo every question because they just want it to be perfect, and they end up taking a lot of extra time. That's a difficult thing to break, because in their head, you know, they're hearing that they've got to do perfect, and be better, and you can tell them, you know, as a parent or as a teacher, listen, that's good enough. But that's not what they're hearing. Internally, they're hearing, no, it's not good enough, I've got to do better. So it's hard to break that. It's really hard. Again, I've had students who are just, they overworked. They did way more than they needed to. they had mastered the content. They did, but for whatever reason, they were driven. Now, some, unfortunately, was driven by parents, but sometimes it's driven by themselves. It's not the parents, and it comes from the student. I don't know what causes that and why that happens, but I know it's not easy to undo that. The student has to, because they feel anxious if they don't do all that extra work. They're a little bit anxious, like, oh, I'm not going to get the good enough grade, or I'm not going to get the recognition if I don't do all of this. I remember my middle daughter was that way. She always worked harder than she needed to, and I remember she was working on a project, and if I remember correctly, there was something wrong. So again, she was doing online classes, and there was something wrong with our one computer, and she